Hossein, eternal life is the promise of most religions. What is eternal life like in Islam?
You know, Robert, this is an aspect of Islamic teachings which is very much misunderstood in the West, and sometimes, unfortunately, deliberately. Because the Quran uses a very sensuous language to describe paradise. For example, there are animals and plants in the Islamic paradise. And in fact, the English word for paradise comes from the old Persian word pardis, which means garden, and which is in the Arabic form, firdaus means paradise in Arabic. So it's very interesting that the very words are shared between Arabic and English, but with two very different meanings. Islam identifies, first of all, paradise with the garden. Not that it was simply an abstraction of the gardens of Babylonia, as some people say, but the gardens of Babylonia were reflections of paradise. It's the other way around. And Islamic gardens, so famous in Spain and India, were always consciously reflections of the paradisal garden. And then there's the question of sexuality. That is the presence of huris, or which has entered into the English language, of maidens, and also men for women, and all kinds of things like that, which are then were considered in the Middle Ages as proving that Islam was not spiritual and it was very sensuous. Now, of course, after the...
I don't mind, by the way.
After the sexual revolution of the 20th century, lesser criticisms made of that. But let's take this description. Sexuality, sexual union, is the most powerful experience that we have on the external senses level in this world. There's no doubt about it. Eating, nothing compares to it. But it's limited. It is limited, first of all, by all the legal elements, by our own physical capabilities, by emotional relations, and 1,001 things that we all know about. Now, take all those limitations away. The heart of the experience of sexual union is a paradisal experience. That's why everybody's after it. It's a kind of seeking after the lost paradise. Now, the language that is used in the Quran for paradise must be understood symbolically. There are thousands of books written in Arabic, Persian, other Islamic languages about what the meaning of these is. The great mystics who fasted for 50 years, they didn't want to go to paradise just to have a heavenly meal or meet a beautiful maiden. They had already gone beyond all these lower drives of the self. But they understood these in their symbolic aspect. When you're very hungry, very, really hungry, the first bite you eat is almost like eating God, if I use a Hindu term. It's really a spiritual experience. They said because you then get a stomachache if you eat too much and you get fat, and all of the limitations of our terrestrial existence come into play. Now, these descriptions of paradise, which involve what's called ma'idah, that is the feast, the paradisal feast of fruit, paradisal fruit, and so forth and so on, and then, as I said, the sensual, sexual descriptions, are not meant to simply lower the value of paradise, but to elevate it and to show that everything that's pleasurable in this world, everything that we enjoy, is really a reflection of a paradisal experience. The other one is very, very important. And that if these things have laws against them, it's precisely because of the limitation that is imposed by our earthly condition. For example, it's not what many Christians think, that in Islam, lewdness is just all over the place. In fact, Muslims are much more strict about these matters, obviously. The Christians, on the one hand, from this side, on the other hand, from the other side. But it means that the limitations that are put by the divine law, by social customs and so forth, we fast a whole month of the year. Ramadan just ended, we fasted for a whole month, from dawn to dusk, which is not an easy matter, or sunset. All of these are to cut the soul away from attraction to the lower reflections of these realities and have the soul gaze upon the real reality itself. That's what paradise is. And even within paradise, there are levels. the Quran refers to that explicitly and is developed very fully by Ibn Arabi or the great Islamic mystics, the levels in paradise. The highest paradise is called the paradise of the gardener and not the garden. Paradise of the essence, in which every single concept and idea and limited form of existence is transcended. That is, even we are beyond the paradisal state in the ordinary sense.
In the Islamic paradise, do we lose our personality and merge into some cosmic consciousness that some religions teach?
First of all, it's really metacosmic consciousness. Secondly, it's a very difficult question to answer because there is a kind of swimming in the ocean of divinity and therefore being drowned in that ocean, but still retaining something of what we are. And it's this expression, very difficult to describe, that Meister Eckhart formulated this beautiful expression, fusion without confusion. And therefore, on the highest level, we go beyond the I-thou relationship. And therefore, we transcend what we usually identify as our I. In a sense, we reach an essence which transcends this first and primal duality between I and thou, as Martin Buber said in his famous book, to transcend that into the divine unity. But it's always what you might call a bi-unity. That is, there is not total annihilation in the ordinary sense, because by some great mystery, which is not possible to understand simply mentally and rationally, we're given the power to be conscious of our own nothingness in the divinity.
Well, I don't know if that's good or bad. I love the idea of some beatific paradise, but I'm not sure that wouldn't, at least speaking humanly, get old, get boring after a while. I like to do things.
That's because our ordinary consciousness is rooted in time. And it's very hard for us to conceive of that which transcends time. I always say this to my students: why is it that when you're dating the girl that you love very much, 4 hours passes as 1 minute, and you don't have at all to worry about time? But when she breaks up with you, 1 hour is like 10 days. So we have actually an inward experience of time. It's true we have clocks and atomic clocks and this and that. It's only one of the meanings of time. We have this inner experience of time, and we have the possibility of transcending time, even in this world, in high forms of meditation and spiritualization. So the very question of getting bored or things becoming old do not exist. And this elan, this sort of force within the soul that wants to act, is turned inward and has no desire to act externally because it doesn't seek its own perfection through acting outwardly. And so these criticisms that we make of the traditional descriptions of paradise, they are based on our lack of experience of those realities.
And from an Islamic point of view, how ultimately real and significant in the Islamic philosophy is paradise?
Ultimately, only the real is real. And that's what I call the unity of being, this very daring expression in Islamic metaphysics, which says there's only really one being, ultimately. Now, the paradises, as well as the purgatories and the hells and earth and all of the heavens in between, are relatively real. Ultimately, only the ultimate is real.